He slept in his car for nearly 3 years. No shower, no address, no certainty about tomorrow. And today, that same man is worth over $200 million and is recognized by millions of people around the world. This is not a movie. This is the real life of Steve Harvey, and if you are going through something right now, you need to hear this story all the way to the end. Broderick Stephen Harvey was born on January 17, 1957, in Welch, West Virginia. Welch is a small coal mining town tucked deep in McDowell County, one of the most economically depressed regions in the entire United States. This was not a place where dreams came easy. This was a place where survival was the priority. His father worked in the coal mines. His mother was a deeply spiritual woman who poured faith into her children, even when there was very little else to give. Steve grew up in a household where money was always tight, where the future felt uncertain, and where the path forward was anything but clear. From a very young age, Steve Harvey carried something unusual inside him, a sense of humor that could light up any room, a voice that commanded attention. His 5th grade teacher once asked the class to write down what they wanted to be when they grew up. Steve wrote that he wanted to be on television. When he shared that with his class, the kids laughed at him. His teacher looked at that paper and likely could not imagine how a kid from Welch, West Virginia, was going to end up on television. But Steve kept that piece of paper. He held on to that dream even when nobody else did. Life did not hand Steve Harvey any shortcuts. After high school, he bounced between jobs trying to find his footing. He worked as an insurance salesman. He delivered mail as a postal worker. He was a carpet cleaner. He tried his hand as an auto worker. None of it clicked. None of it felt like the life he was supposed to be living. He was trying to survive on the outside while carrying a burning vision on the inside. And that tension between where you are and where you know you are meant to be is one of the most painful places a human being can exist. In 1985, Steve Harvey stood in front of a microphone for the first time as a stand-up comedian in Cleveland, Ohio. He barely made it through those first few minutes. His hands shook, his heart pounded. But when the audience laughed, something shifted in him. Something clicked. He knew right then that this was what he was created to do. The problem was that knowing your purpose and building a career from it are two very different things, and the road between those 2 points nearly destroyed him. Throughout the late 1980s and into the early 1990s, Steve Harvey was grinding on the comedy circuit, traveling from city to city, performing wherever he could get booked. The money was inconsistent. The bookings were unpredictable. His first marriage ended in divorce. His finances collapsed beneath him. And then came the moment that most people never talk about when they celebrate Steve Harvey's success. He lost everything. He had nowhere to go. He literally ended up living in his car, a 1976 Ford Tempo, for nearly 3 years. Let that land for a moment. 3 years, sleeping in parking lots, waking up and not knowing where his next meal was coming from. He would wash up in gas station bathrooms before heading to comedy shows where he would make the audience roar with laughter. Nobody in those seats had any idea what was waiting for him in the parking lot after the show. He kept his situation private because pride can sometimes be the last thing standing between a person and total despair. He told himself every single day that this season was not permanent, that this was temporary, that this was not his destination. It was just part of his path. What kept Steve Harvey going during those years was a deep and unshakable faith. He talked openly about his belief in God and how prayer became his anchor when logic said it was time to quit. He had conversations with himself in that car. He rehearsed his future. He spoke out loud about what he was going to become even when everything around him said otherwise. Psychologists call this kind of thinking future self-visualization. And for Steve Harvey, it was not a self-help technique. It was survival. Then the doors began to open. Steve Harvey earned a spot on the television show It's Showtime at the Apollo in 1993. His presence was electric. Audiences fell in love with him. His natural charisma, his sharp wit, and his ability to connect with everyday Black American experience made him stand out in a way that could not be manufactured. That appearance was a turning point. It led to more opportunities, more visibility, and eventually to one of the biggest breaks of his career. In 1996, Steve Harvey became one of the original kings of comedy alongside Cedric the Entertainer, D.L. Hewley, and Bernie Mac. The Kings of Comedy tour became a cultural phenomenon. Spike Lee turned it into a documentary film in 2000 that introduced Steve Harvey to an entirely new global audience. He was no longer just a comedian working the circuit. He was becoming a household name. From there, the trajectory shifted dramatically. The Steve Harvey Show aired from 1996 to 2002 and gave him a platform to show the world his range. He could make you laugh, but he could also make you feel. Then came his radio show, The Steve Harvey Morning Show, which became one of the most listened to morning radio programs in American history. Millions of people tuned in every single morning to hear the voice of the man who used to wake up in a Ford Tempo in a parking lot. In 2009, Steve Harvey published a book called Act Like a Lady, Think Like a Man. The book became a massive bestseller and eventually was adapted into a Hollywood film in 2012. Then came the television show Steve Harvey, his daytime talk show, which ran for years and earned him Emmy Award nominations. And then Family Feud. When Steve Harvey took over as host of Family Feud, the show experienced a massive ratings revival. His hosting style was perfectly matched to the format. He became synonymous with the show in a way that few hosts ever become synonymous with any program. Today, Steve Harvey is worth an estimated $200 million. He runs a media company. He mentors thousands of young people through his philanthropic work. He speaks at events around the world about faith, persistence, and purpose. He went from sleeping in a car to owning a mansion, from eating whatever he could afford to building a brand that stretches across television, radio, publishing, and philanthropy. And through it all, he never stopped talking about where he came from. Steve Harvey often says that you cannot get to where you are going without going through what you went through. That every struggle had a purpose. That the years in the car were not wasted years. They were building years. They were years that gave him depth, gave him gratitude, and gave him a story that could reach millions of people who needed to hear it. Here is what Steve Harvey's life teaches all of us. Circumstances are not sentences. Where you are right now is not where you have to stay. A coal mining town in West Virginia, a car in a parking lot, divorce, debt, rejection, none of it was the final chapter. The world may have written Steve Harvey off 100 times over, but he refused to write himself off. He kept showing up. He kept believing. He kept moving forward even when forward felt impossible. Where you start in life does not determine where you can go. Your current chapter is not your final chapter. The story is still being written, and the pen is in your hands. If this story moved you, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to CelebPath for more inspiring real-life stories just like this one. Drop a comment below telling us what you learned from Steve Harvey's journey. Share this video with someone who needs hope today, because you never know who is sitting in their own version of a Ford Tempo right now just waiting for a reason to keep going. And click the link in the bio for your free financial breakthrough. Someone out there needed this today. Make sure it reaches them.